All right, let's get right into it. So, a really big, much anticipated date for the Christian rapture, well, it came and went this past September. Now, you'd think, okay, theory is debunked, right? But for some online communities, that was actually just the beginning. It kicked off this huge investigation to figure out what went wrong, and that led to a super complex recalculation and, you guessed it, a brand new date.
And that really brings us to the big question here, doesn't it? How do you even begin to calculate a precise date for the end of the world? I mean, how do you take all these different pieces, prophecies, ancient texts, pop culture references, even people's dreams, and weave them all together into one single timeline? Well, that's what we're going to do. We're going to break down their entire methodology, step by step.
Okay, so first, a little bit of context. September 23rd, that was the big day. It was the major focus. But when that day came and went, for this community, it wasn't a failure at all. In fact, one person said the whole thing really opened my eyes. It started this huge search, not for a new prophecy, but for a miscalculation in the one they already believed in.
And that search, it led them straight to the very first and maybe the most crucial piece of the puzzle, the calendar itself. And this is the absolute core idea that everything else is built on. The belief is that the numbers, the prophecies, they were right the whole time. The problem? We've all been using the wrong calendar. So the date didn't fail. Our entire understanding of time did. So first things first, you gotta fix that fundamental error, right? To find what they called lost time, they had to turn their focus away from scripture for a moment and look deep into the history of the Roman calendar. Okay, so here's the argument they lay out. You know how September comes from the Latin word septem, which means 7, and November comes from novem for 9? But wait, September is our 9th month and November is our 11th? So what gives? Well, the idea is that the original Roman calendar only had 10 months. January and February were apparently added way later, around 700 BC, and that just shifted everything forward. This 2-month gap, that is the absolute key to the whole thing. So, okay, if the Gregorian calendar we all use is fundamentally flawed, then which one is the right one? Well, according to these sources, the answer is in this ancient alternative, one that's described as being written in the heavens, in the stars and the moon, not by some king or pope. And so the search was on. They started sifting through all these different historical calendars. They looked at the Talmudic calendar but dismissed it as being from the Babylonians. The Julian and Gregorian? Nope, those are just man-made. They eventually landed on the one they see as the true authority, the Enoch Calendar. This is the one they believe reflects real, unaltered time straight from the heavens. And this is where it all clicks into place. So if September was originally the 7th month, that means the original 9th month, from Novem, is what we now call November. So if you follow that logic, the prophesied date of 9/23, well, it's not September 23rd, it's actually November 23rd. But hold on, because the calendar, that's just the first layer of the cake. The next step is where things get really interesting. It involves finding this hidden language of numbers that's supposedly embedded in everything. Current events, the media. This is a practice known as numerology or gematria, where letters and words are given specific numerical values. Take the number 923. It comes straight from the date, right? 923. This number becomes this recurring signal, a motif. And so believers start searching for this exact sequence absolutely everywhere, seeing it as a sign of confirmation. And it's not always super straightforward. The numbers can be flipped. So the number 239 is seen as basically the same signal, just a mirrored version of that same core message. And then other numbers start to pop up and become really significant. For example, the number 322. This one gets identified as like a calling card for the Skull and Bones secret society, which they say links big world events to some kind of hidden agenda. And this slide really shows you where they find these patterns. I mean, get this. The number 239 apparently shows up as Homer Simpson's weight on a bathroom scale, and it's also stamped on a North Korean missile. Then there's the number 47. They connect the 47-day journey of the Exodus to Donald Trump, who they call the 47th president. It's all about connecting these seemingly random dots into one big picture. Okay, so we've got the calendar adjustment, and we've got these numerical patterns. But those two things aren't enough on their own. They need to be backed up by a third, much more spiritual element, personal visions and dreams. And this quote, it really gets to the heart of why this is so powerful for them. For believers, it's the sheer number of people coming forward with these similar yet totally independent spiritual experiences. That serves as powerful proof. It's like a divine chorus, all singing the same tune, confirming that their calculations are on the right track. And we're not talking about vague feelings here. These dreams are often incredibly specific. One person had a dream about getting a job with an airline, which confirmed to them that they'd be taken on November 23rd. Another one described a vision that gave a direct clue for the whole recalculation, seeing Jesus with a Rubik's Cube who says time is off. Pretty specific, right? All right, now we've reached the final and maybe the most intricate piece of this whole puzzle. It's the idea that global elites are hiding messages about their plans in plain sight, right inside our movies, TV shows, and even music videos. This quote really sums up the whole philosophy. The belief is that mass media is used for something called predictive programming. It's this idea that hidden powers forecast what they're going to do by putting it in our entertainment, and we just watch it thinking it's just a movie. And the sources point to a ton of different media. The Simpsons, of course, comes up all the time. But they're also scouring films like The Dark Knight Rises and even music videos, looking for any clue that lines up with the numbers and dates they've already figured out. Here's a perfect example of how this actually works in practice. So in the movie The Dark Knight Rises, you've got the fictional football team, the Gotham Rogues, and their colors are black and yellow. Well, analysts point out that a real team, the Pittsburgh Steelers, wears those exact same colors. And guess what? They're scheduled to play a game on November 23rd. So that's seen as a hidden message, a forecast for a huge event on that very day. So let's just recap the whole method here. It's really a 4-step system. Step 1, you adjust the calendar. Step 2, you find those repeating numerical patterns. Step 3, you look for confirmation in personal dreams and visions. And finally, Step 4, you uncover the predictive programming messages hidden in the media. And you can see how each step just reinforces all the others. When you step back and look at the whole thing, what you're really seeing is this powerful example of modern meaning-making. It's a system for finding order in what feels like chaos. It's about connecting all these different threads, from ancient history to global politics to Hollywood and personal spirituality, and weaving them into one single cohesive story. And that kind of leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. In a world where there's just an infinite amount of data, and you can find patterns literally anywhere you look, the real challenge isn't finding the patterns, is it? It's deciding what's a sign and what's just a coincidence. And that's a question that goes way beyond this one prediction. It really touches on how all of us try to make sense of an incredibly complex world.